Hello, I'm Florence Laffer. I'm the director of Prison Insider. Prison Insider is an information platform on prisons in the world. We inform, we compare, and we share testimonials on conditions of detention with regard to fundamental rights. This video is part of a series on the findings of ICPR's research on understanding and reducing the use of imprisonment. Today's discussion will focus on criminalization of homelessness and prison conditions in South Africa. There's a growing recognition of the failings of imprisonment as a response to social problems. The types of illegal conduct leading to imprisonment vary greatly from one country to another. In certain countries, prison sentences punish first-time offenders even for petty offenses. This kind of sentencing does little to tackle the underlying complex causes of much reoffending. Some people end up in prison for weeks or for months because they can't afford to pay a fine or to hire a lawyer. But how does this affect the most vulnerable people in South Africa? And what can be done to promote change? I'm very happy today to welcome two experts to discuss the issue. Danielle Lowe. Danielle is an attorney at Ndifuna Ukwazi NGO in Cape Town, South Africa. She assists individuals and communities in resisting displacement and evictions. She works against the criminalization of the poor. Danielle is passionate about collective healing processes in South Africa. Derek.
Hi, Florence. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Derek Thulani Ndlovu. Hello, Thulani. Thulani is a former prisoner from South Africa. In the past years, he's embarked on projects educating prisoners about HIV/AIDS and advocating for prisoners' rights. Thulani has co-authored articles on these topics. He currently works with the formerly incarcerated as an adherence and retention counselor for the Aurum Institutes.
So in the Cape Town context, which is in the Western Cape province in South Africa, we have currently in place two sets of bylaws. So these bylaws work to effectively criminalize the behaviors of homeless people. So essentially what these laws do is that they make it a crime to beg, sit, lie, or store belongings on the street. So as we know, these are normal, ordinary, life-sustaining activities that all individuals do, but because people are living on the street, they have no choice but to do these activities in public. So what these bylaws then do is they empower the law enforcement officials of the city of Cape Town to fine homeless people. Oftentimes fines can go up to the amount of 2,000 Rand, which is a lot of money for someone who has little to nothing in South Africa. So the fining of homeless people, we believe, is a nonsensical approach to addressing the root causes of why someone finds himself on the street. So should a homeless person not be able to pay this fine, they then expose themselves open to being incarcerated. So what we do know is that homeless people spend on average 38 days in prison in South Africa, and they are also 11 times more likely to be arrested than those people are homed. So to us, the criminalization of homelessness is counterproductive approach and something that doesn't address, as I said, that the root causes of why someone finds himself on the street.
A vast majority of the poor people coming from poor background and poverty-stricken areas. This I'm talking about the townships and the rural areas. So you find that in a one prison, you find that maybe there are only 2 or 3 that will say they belong to the middle class or the rich people, which majority will be the white people or any other middle class that will fall under. So yeah, there is. Life in prison in South Africa, it's very hard. It's hard to be in prison because, for one, they have taken away your freedom, and on top of that, where I was, because I was doing a longer sentence, which is a maximum sentence, you'll spend more like 21 to 23 hours in prison, in a cell, locked up. So you see that affect the way you are thinking, the way of doing things. It's more like you're away from the society. So you are separated from the society, and there is no healthy way of life. And also there's a lot of violence, unhygienic, and the prison, by then it was overcrowded, which is in most prison in South Africa, they are overcrowded. That's what the guys are still telling me even now. So in those kind of situation, you find that there's a lot of sickness and diseases like your tuberculosis and many other, and violence is a thing of prison, which it doesn't, it counteract the rehabilitation programs that are being offered, or that they are non-existent in prison. It becomes difficult for one to re-establish their life after prison, because already they have got a criminal record, which is a barrier to employment or any other effective way of life. And you find that before prison they were this kind of a person, and then after prison they sort of like graduate, because at the end of the day they don't have the skill to work or anything. So they use their connection, which they either gain from prison or they either gain before prison, to carry on living the life that they fit out.
Our clients that we are representing haven't been incarcerated themselves, but they are concerned about the fact that because they are unable to pay these fines, they will have a criminal record that goes against their name, which will in the future prevent them from actually finding gainful employment and the like.
My philosophy is that prison doesn't change people. People change themselves. So if you treat an individual like a human being, they'll act like a human being. But if you treat them like an animal, then they'll behave like an animal. So the prison system, it treats people like animals. So the chances of effective rehabilitation, it's low at the current moment. However, if the rehabilitation programs were to be person-centered programs, instead of being the prison concentrating on the security only, then I guess there was a hope that rehabilitation can really work. But at the current moment, there is no rehabilitation that is taking place. Only some prison, it differs one prison to another. The other prison will offer skills development, which it's a waste of time, because we are not going to use it upon release because of a criminal record. Companies are not coming in to bridge that gap. So it's more like a waste of time. And also some prison do encourage education, furthering education, matric, which is a higher education, and also university, tertiary, and the likes, which also it becomes like it's a things of prison. You do it in prison, and then when you go out, you've got no money to further your studies, and because you are now outside, you are now expected to pay your tuition, which is, you're not working by then. It will take you time to readjust your life and the stuff. So to me, they are non-existent. Myself, before when I came out, I didn't know what I'll do after prison. I don't have a skill, but however, I was fortunate that in prison I started to have a serious conversation with myself and start to readjust myself. And I did some few courses and had some few engagement with outside organization, which they helped me upon release to sit in their meetings, advise them, because they also have interest. They are working in prison or with ex-offenders. So I became the advisor, I became the consultant, which sort of gave me something to do than to not do anything. Because I guess if I was not doing anything, I would have no choice but to go back and do what I know best. So that's a typical example of myself. And also the guys that I work with, most of them, they are on substance abuse. So they smoke. So if someone is smoking, it's not that in prison they're not going to be smoking. They're going to smoke. And when they come out, they didn't have a chance in prison to not to smoke. So they continued. And when they're outside, because of the trauma that they encountered in prison and outside, it's a vicious cycle. It simply means that they are going to still continue smoking. So when they smoke, when there is nothing, they end up stealing. They're stealing lousy things like chocolate so that they can go and sell and buy their fix. So they end up going to prison. You find that I've got one guy who was released in 2019, and ever since has been twice to prison, and still now he is in prison.
You know, I think from speaking from the City of Cape Town perspective, the approach that the city currently employs is one that isn't need-centered. Thulani was talking about person-centered, and I think it's the same thing. So the approach that they are currently using is one that focuses on the consequences of a lack of need, or a lack of having basic needs met. So to us, it would be a radical shift in the current approach that they are employing. So, for instance, it would be to rather make an assessment of the individual and as well as systemic circumstances that contribute to having to someone being on the street. So to us, it would be a shift in policy. And we know that that takes political will, and currently we are struggling with finding that political will with our actors here in the City of Cape Town.
I certainly agree with Danielle. In terms of systematic change and law reforms. So to me, it's what I call the law is blind when it comes to other social ills. So the law should take note of the poverty, take note of the economical marginalizations, and also, as Danielle is talking about the homelessness on the street, all that should be incorporated when they are dealing with cases, so that the law doesn't have that blanket or is not ignorant, but taking into cognizance the most important thing, the factors that are affecting people's life on a daily basis. Yeah, so what I would love to see happening is that the criminal justice and the social development and the Department of Correctional Services work hand in hand, so that they can have that interlink to solve cases on a more realistic approach.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our experts. Thank you to the viewers. We're very happy to have this rich discussion today. I'd like to invite you to follow the website prisoninsider.com and also prisonstudies.org for ICPR's research work. You'll find much more information about today's issue, but also a number of other issues regarding sentencing and prison conditions. Thank you. Goodbye.